Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Intentional Productivity Tips. I am Megan. I am your very favorite strategic productivity partner, and I am so excited today. I know I say that every week, and I am excited today, but today I am beyond excited. I am thrilled because today I have a special guest. Today we are going to be not only talking about productivity, we are going to be talking about productivity in job search. And we're going to be talking about it with a true expert that I have known for, we're not going to say the number of years. I have known her for a long time. I have had the honor of working with her. She is one of the best job search facilitator workshops I have worked with. And her insight is amazing. So today we're going to talk about productivity in job searching. We are going to get insights from the recruiter's chair. I have Kelly Jones here with me today. Kelly, welcome to Intentional Productivity Tips.
Hi, Megan. Thanks so much for having me on.
It is so good. Again, like I said to people, we're not going to say how long we've known each other. We're just going to say it's from a previous decade or so, right?
Sure. Let's go with that.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me. Yeah. And today on Intentional Productivity Tips, we're going to join two of my worlds. For a long time, I was in a world in employment services. Now I'm in a world of productivity and project management. And we know when it comes to productivity, job search and how to be productive with your job search, how to job search is a huge question, especially in 2025. So I am so excited to have Kelly Jones join us. Again, as I mentioned, we were together in San Diego County in an employment services contract. We're both not in San Diego anymore. In fact, she's in the desert. I'm in the mountains. Off the beach, unfortunately. But I want to thank you for joining, Kelly. And first, I would just like for you to share with us a little bit. Tell us how you started with job search, as you know what I mean. What has your history been in your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I've been a job seeker, right? So that definitely plays a part in shaping how you look at the job search from the job seeker's end. It helps you be a little more empathetic there. But I think just thinking about what you learn in high school from how to get a job, and you have that paper application and then all the interviewing that you do, and no one's really taking you seriously because you just got out of high school. And then one day you wake up and you're looking for real professional work. And in my case, that happened when I was just a little down on my luck. I had 2 kids under 5, and I was seeking, employment services and things from the government. And one thing about being in that situation is you are never quite as inspired to get a good paying job than you are when you are depending on the government for your needs. And so being in that kind of, an employment workshop, and people are kind of telling you how to go about your strategies and looking for jobs and talking to people and cold calling. And there were just so many things being thrown at you. And you're like, there's a whole life cycle to the candidate, there. And then you realize how compartmentalized it is. There's the candidate, there's a hiring team, and then there's the recruiting team. And these are just things that most people aren't thinking about when you're looking for work. And so getting into that and kind of learning how to look at my own labor statistics, and is this job that I'm looking for, does it really have a high growth trajectory? Is this really what I want to be doing? And connecting myself with websites that kind of tell you these are the skills you have, but you might really thrive in an environment like this. And so I think being from the chair of the job seeker to the person facilitating a workshop to help the next generation of job seekers really kind of propelled me to know that the empathy and integrity and the resourcefulness that I carry and kind of define who I am in my world of work really shaped that perspective for me on what do I want to do now. And being a recruiting coordinator, not so much a recruiter, but I kind of get to help my recruiters adopt those same values when they're thinking about the candidates, because they only have this one scope that they're looking at them through. And then I have the, once we're in the door and we're moving along, there's a different kind of visibility that I have between all three of those compartments I just talked about. So, you know, it's been a really interesting journey.
What a good way to put that. And when you think about that, what a powerful role that you have to be able to say, okay, let's look at the perspective. Like, let's look at all the people involved on the employment side, you know, on the employer side, and then let's look at everything on the job seeker side. Because like you said, there is a lot involved in so many of those.
Very, very true. And I think like when, no matter what side of this you're on, you know, your customer experience is always central. When you're the candidate, the interviewer, and that company that you're looking at, that's your customer. Okay. And as a recruiter and as the hiring team that will be interviewing that person, that's your customer. So making sure these customer experiences are central is one of like the best things that you can carry with you into any kind of job search.
That makes sense. You know, and that's something I was actually very curious to ask you. So full disclosure, I left employment services in about 2014. So 10 years, which the last 10 years we would say in the world has been like 100 as far as you know, but that's something that I've been curious about because people talk to me about it now. And first of all, one question I would like to say, as you've been in this industry, how much has changed and what has surprised you about the changes?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot has changed. Can we just say I haven't had to touch a paper application in almost a decade? So, you know, it's still a good skill to have, right? Because it kind of translates online to what you're filling out. But I mean, that's just the base of things, having to put a pen to paper and read everything that you have to fill in before you get to the next screen. I think when you think about how much the application process has been automated, that's definitely different. But then when you're looking at like I guess what you would call the recruitonomics of it all, right? You had this whole boom and bust situation about 10 years ago where hiring was spiking fast, but layoffs were hitting hard. It was like, okay, everybody hire everyone. And now fire 3/4 of them. Those are things that you definitely saw. Sitting under a lot of recruiters, feeling overloaded. So in my first set of roles being a recruiting coordinator, you know, I have to schedule these interviews. And so I'm seeing if this is only a percentage of what they're talking to, there's so many people that recruiters are talking to. And so they're swinging constantly between the overload and the impact of having these heavy loads to fill roles for, and then hiring freeze. Now I've contacted all these people and now I have to tell them we're waiting. So very volatile, very feast famine type of cycles. And then now it's like people are slower to hire. And it's not necessarily that there's a shortage of jobs or a shortage of candidates. There's just this huge disconnect in what we're looking for versus like the gems that are out there. But I'm sure we'll get into like the AI of it all. But there are so many people that just kind of get hidden in this chasm between employers cautiously opening roles and not wanting to, you know, cut some people who maybe they don't need to be there anymore, or those roles have been outlived and they need to reduce that part of their workforce. But there's also like a steady, kind of like a steady flow of candidates who are working, but something new. So we've kind of just moved from these sudden swings to like, it's kind of like a very sticky labor market. Nobody really wants to move forward. At the same time, everyone's like, move fast. It's very strange.
That is interesting. Now, there's two things there. One thing you said that really caught my attention was when you were talking about being the gem, finding the gem, because that's when you look at it from both perspectives. From the job seeker, it is, how do I, as a gem, like the gem of Megan, how do I stand out? And how do I do that in this AI world of applicant tracking systems and in all of those tools, right? And
Yeah.
then also for the recruiter, how do you do that? So what would your recommendation be for the job seeker? How can you stand out? What are some authentic, not cheesy ways, but what are some authentic ways to stand out in that way?
Yeah. So first of all, don't publicly attack the recruiting or HR process. It is frustrating. And anyone who's ever had to find a job knows that. But I have recently seen some very lengthy posts about how recruiters just don't care. I get ghosted by these companies. And you're this one person in a sea of thousands of applicants who have maybe reached out to this job in a world where recruiting takes the first budget hit in a company directly. So you're usually working with very lean recruiting teams, and they're really trying to do their best to get the best talent in front of the hiring teams. And then the other thing is, sometimes there's a disconnect between what recruiters see and what the hiring manager sees. A hiring manager has all of these very high objectives in mind, and the recruiters trying to do their best to meet those, but they also are seeing the reality of the market. So what I would say to the job seeker is, first of all, there is a subconscious like poaching mentality out there, if you will. You are more desirable if you are employed.
Where have I heard that before? Where have I heard you're more employable before?
Come on, years ago, you know? But yeah, I mean, that still stands very true today. You know, I think some hiring managers might look at it like, if this person is so great, why aren't they taken? It's like relationships too, right? But if they're so amazing, why aren't you taken? And then when you get in front of them and they're like, you are amazing, why aren't you taken? So there becomes like this weird suspicion there. So some of my thoughts around that are, maybe take off the green banner on LinkedIn. I know it was like intentionally made for people to say, hey, that person is looking for work, but it's also a target that says, hey, that person is looking for work. Why? And if
really good point.
Company didn't want them before, like, why do we want them now? So I would take that off to start. And then I think networking is another thing that's not going to really ever go out of style, especially these days. If the internal company is so reliant on algorithms, right? Then you have to make your own personal algorithm with the people that you know and that you meet. And it's not just liking a post here and there, but it's going to take some work. You need to make sure that you have an in at the companies that you're interested in. It doesn't mean make best friends, but a lot of employees have incentives for referrals. So get to know those people because they want a little extra cash in the pocket. And so if they met you at a couple of networking events, or they see that you're posting really quality materials, they see the things you're working on outside of work, they are more apt to refer you to the inside you're already in. And referrals typically get moved ahead in the hiring process a little faster than your organic or passive sourced candidates.
That is such a good way to explain that. And that is so very true. And I love that. Networking is not going to go out of style.
No.
And the insider tip, which we need to remember, especially if you know somebody at the company or can develop a relationship, people like the referral fee.
Very much.
You know,
very much.
That is so, so powerful. And I think you're right. And I think that it is important to, like, when you're talking about the green banner, you know, do you have that you're available or not? There was a time when it was very useful. And it's also important to ask yourself every once in a while, is my resume, my profile, or my thing, you know, how often would you recommend somebody look at, refresh, kind of just look with a new set of eyes at whatever is out there about themselves in the world, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, to your point on refreshing, you know, I'm not actively looking for another job, but I'm constantly adding new things that I've done, or new projects I get assigned, or, you know, revamping my photo or my banner, little things to keep yourself relevant and top of mind when people see you. Oh, that's a new photo. Oh, that, you know, they wrote this article. Oh, they liked this, and this is what they had to say about this repost. You're staying top of mind. You're getting that exposure. People know you, they see you, they trust you. And it's very useful, especially when it comes to that networking piece.
No, that makes sense. That is so important. And I think you're right. Again, it's that visibility and it's showing who you are and it's that steady. It's remembering that job search isn't necessarily transactional. It's more of a process. And so to be aware of that.
Absolutely.
That's important. One thing that I also am curious, and so I want to ask about, but before I ask like about remote jobs and the side hustle of it all, I am curious, especially LinkedIn. And the reason I'm going to ask, and I'm going to go back to our previous world. I remember, again, this was the early 2010s, right? We were meeting as a job search, all of the facilitators figuring out what to do with this thing called LinkedIn. And so when you think, I mean, I remember all of us looking and figuring out how to help participants and things. And again, it wasn't that long ago, it was, but when you think about like the power of social media and LinkedIn, how has it impacted you and what is worth the time spent? Does that make sense? Is it worth spending time or how is it worth spending time?
I have to say, I have drastically shifted my opinion on this in the last 3 years.
Okay.
So when I got hired in the role that I'm in right now, I was, passively searching other work. I wasn't, announcing it, but, looking at what other companies had to offer, getting a little frustrated because it's like, well, how do you reach these people? Like nobody wants to respond to these in-mails. Nobody, I'm tagging people and nobody wants to talk to me. But then I realized, converse, like on the opposite side, how much time I'm spending on Instagram or TikTok and noticing algorithm. We hear that word a lot, but sometimes it's kind of crazy. Like when originally these things rolled out, we weren't really aware that your phone is listening. I've been talking all day about Fruit Loops. Why do I have all these ads about Fruit Loops? Why am I seeing all these memes and reels about Fruit Loops? Well, it's listening to you. And so a few years ago, I was just thinking like, these are my values and this is where I'm at, doesn't have these, and what kind of jobs do? What are people saying about this? So when I started to scroll LinkedIn, looking at what was happening in the world of recruiting, what was happening in the job market today, what are people saying about interviewing right now? And then I noticed it was recommending people for me to connect with. People were connecting with me based on comments that I was leaving. And I thought, okay, there really is something to this networking piece. It's not a waste of time if I'm not wasting my time. So my dad always used to tell me, when you're job searching, that is your full-time job because there are, requirements to look at. There's skills matching. There's all these things that you're trying to successfully strategize and be prepared to do, and staying organized and all of those different things. But when I really started to dig into LinkedIn and how it helps you stay organized, how it helps you kind of keep track of your job history, how easy those click and apply applications are through LinkedIn. It's how you're using your time on there. Now, as time has progressed, we are now using, you see more reels, more outside things that are not directly related to the job on LinkedIn, but it still stands to show that if you're really invested in a certain type of work or a certain type of company that aligns with your specific value set, the more you look into it, the more it comes looking for you. And it's just in your algorithm. And that little bit of focus and time spent where it matters can get you connected with the right people and so on. It goes the cycle of getting into the right job.
I love thinking about that, of setting your algorithm for job search. And like you said, the companies and the people and the interests. As you were talking about that, I was thinking about a weekend that I spending looking at monkeys, so that in Instagram, so my entire page was recommendations from monkeys. Now I'm looking back that while that was good, I could have been using it for something else or else even. But that is such a good way to think about it, and that our algorithm does impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's all these adages, right, that we just kind of have stocked away. But I feel like whenever you reach a point in your life where you're actually trying to do something or accomplish something, they come up. And those are the time-tested things, like be proactive and prepared, right? Stay organized and be consistent. Every step is a learning opportunity. These are just things that sound like, you're the minutia of talking to someone. But when you're really trying to apply them, you realize preparation is my competitive edge. It's not just reading a headline on somebody's website. It's following that company. What's new with that company's news? What's new with these people who work there? Candidates who research and plan, it's very obvious. And especially in the world of online tools and AI, we can see you when you look away from the screen, when you try to mute so we don't hear you click-clacking on ChatGPT for the right answer. So,
has that happened when you've been interviewing people, that they're, I never thought of that. Of course that is happening.
These are the stories. Like, I hear these stories about, like a candidate will, they'll put an answer on an application question, and they'll copy and paste it from ChatGPT, but they won't take out ChatGPT said. Now it's, and one of my pieces was about this, and it's not that we are disbarring you from using AI. We use it. We know you're going to use it, but use it to prepare, use it as a foundation to kind of, give you an idea or an outline, but don't use it to think for you. Like, we can't move into this space where we're not doing the critical thinking anymore, because that's going to show up in your interviews. It's going to show up in your connections.
That is a very, very good point. Let's talk about that. We will come back, because I do want to talk a little bit about the side hustle and remote work, but we'll come back to that. Let's talk now about how has, again, when, you were in the recruitment job search, you were in that, you've been in the expert since before AI. You've been in it, you were in it when applicant tracking systems started. So what I would ask, and again, thinking from the job seeker perspective, what has surprised you about it, and how can people use it to their benefit? What you just said was so key. We know you're going to use it, be smart about it, basically. But what would you say? What surprised you, and how could people use it in a helpful way?
I think what surprises me is how much people rely on it first instead of second. So, for example, if you are saying, hey, I'm going to write this article about this, and you just put that into ChatGPT, it will spit out something, but that something may not make sense. That something is going to have dead giveaway punctuation, like these little M dashes. ChatGPT is notorious for that, spitting out things that my director was like sharing that with me one time. He was like, that's kind of a hallmark sign. And I started to think, oh, that's true. So I'm looking over things, and I'm actually reading what it's spitting out, and I'm just like, that's all wrong. And then I go to write my own version of this, and I'm like, my iteration is like 10 times better, because it's the human perspective, right? It didn't just take and computate some terms that I gave it and spit it out. So that's one thing that surprises me, is that people don't lean into it as a secondary option, but they're starting to lean into it as the first best resort. Because I think the misnomer is that, well, everybody is using it to shape their ATSs. Everybody, or applicant tracking systems, if you don't know what an ATS is, for whoever's watching. So, that's where your candidate information goes, and where it's stored, where your application lives, where your resume lives. And the truth is that these platforms and tools, they have AI systems within them that work, and it just kind of helps us automate our day so we can get to you faster. But AI is not doing the interviewing. AI is not selecting who we're going to spend our time talking to. That is still very much a high touch personal area that most recruiting organizations really don't want to lose. So that is something that also has shocked me, is how often people think, oh, well, AI took over, it's going to take over, and we are not even going to have real recruiters trying to put us in a seat anymore. And I think that in the world of work, unless companies stop wanting to hire people, that's really not a thing that's going to happen. So don't be so afraid of that. Still be your authentic self, show up as a person, projecting your thoughts, your values, because that's what people are looking at when we're interviewing you, is how does this person solve problems? How does this person work as a team with other people, So yeah, I think those are my top two things that have really surprised me from the job seeker's chair is the reliance on it, while also using it to target a person and say, you're using this, don't use this against me. But then I'm like, but you're using it against us. Like, we know it's not you.
I think that's the biggest thing. And I would say that is that when people, I love what you said there about don't rely on it as your first defense, and I'm not sure what word you use, but don't let it be your first, let it be secondary. And to me, I think it's a great editor. You know what I'm saying? I think it's great to say, hey, is the tone consistent through this? But I think you're right. And I agree when you said you sit down and write it and it's better because it's the human perspective. And when you think about it, no matter what in a job search, it's still always going to be about a human perspective.
Exactly.
I love that you're saying. I love that explanation. So one of the things I'm curious about is, and I was thinking about this a little bit earlier as I was getting ready for this, I was thinking about the difference, one of the differences for me over the last 10, 11 years. And one of the biggest differences for me is pre-2014, I had my job, right? I went to my job, I had a job, and I worked in that job for all of those years. Or it was, I had several, but you know what I mean? I had several jobs.
Yeah.
But now I have a job and then I have several side projects, right? And in fact, I until last year, I had my own company that had my own jobs. And part of when I was working at different places was always, hey, I'm going to work for you and I have this also. How has, and it's different for everybody, but I'm just curious, and I know for me now having access to multiple income streams has been important because I learned for me only one doesn't work because it can go away. So how has that changed, would you say, in the recruiter's world when people might have, maybe I do a side hustle or I have side projects and I'm looking for a job, or how does all of that work? What are your thoughts and have you found?
My thoughts are, you have to ruthlessly prioritize what's important to you. So, especially I think with the uptick in remote workers, companies realizing that we don't have to have you under a microscope. So we're going to stay remote work. If you want to be hybrid, you can let us know. If you want to come into the office, let us know. And I think that because of that, we realize that, okay, maybe this person doesn't need a full 8 hours to accomplish everything. Maybe they work better because they're in an independent, quiet space in their own environment. So what are they doing with this extra time? You have people who bake in their spare time. You have people who do all these things, these side hustles, right? At the same time, you have to be prepared for the ebb and flow of work. So for example, I have this crazy situation here where I work full time as this recruiting coordinator. I also write in my spare time, and I also homeschool 2 teens, and it's just like, okay, there's a revolution every day of what's going to be top of mind for us today. And I think that proactivity and that preparedness helps me stay as productive as possible. Mm-hmm. So I think that mastering productivity, having strategic partners like yourself, who, if you're not naturally a person who prioritizes well, I think that you could get really heavily weighted down. And we've seen people do that. Unfortunately, we've seen people take their lives because work wasn't work. And I was able to do all these things on the side. And then all of a sudden work got very busy and I had to put all these things on hold. And now this is too frustrating and this is too much. And I've lost myself and I feel disconnected from the work world. I can't just go down the hall to my boss and it's over. Like a complete implosion of self. Mm-hmm. But then you also see it on the flip side where it's like, hey, this being able to work remote is a total godsend and I can do all of these things. But I mean, I think that, being remote is definitely a blessing. To not have a commute is great sometimes. But at the same time, if you don't know how to ruthlessly prioritize your basic needs and what it is that you are trying to accomplish, it can drown you as well.
That does make sense, and I would agree with you. First, I would say, especially because we both lived in San Diego and know what that commute was like, especially during fair season or horse racing season, if you were going from downtown to Oceanside. And also, one of the things I will be honest, and I'm fortunate because the company I'm working for right now, we will never be in person. We will never be in office. And also, I love that because break rooms and having to deal with space heaters and the temperature in offices and not having to do that ever again just gives me so much delight in life. I'm not going to lie to you.
That's so funny. You said that. My husband just sent me a video the other day. They took out the refrigerator from their break room and there were, at the airport, roaches just exploded from the wall. And I was just like, your backpack needs to be outside right now, because I don't know who came home with you. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That shared space is not something that I miss very much.
Not at all. Not at all. And it is true, like you said, because when those happen, it's like, what? And so it's fun to be able to do that. Yeah. Kelly, I want to thank you. I have a final question for you, but before I do that, one of the things I would like to do is I would like to be able for you to share a little bit about your contact information. And thank you for the gems that you have given us. How can people get a hold of you? How can they follow you, reach you? How can they do that?
Yeah. So by email, I am knslade1@gmail.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Kelly Jones for the win, and that is for the number 4. And those are the best 2 ways to contact me. Direct message me. I love when people ask about, needing job searching tips. And my whole goal is just for people to stay hopeful, to continue the job search. It's very heavy these days. And there's a lot of fear mongering happening in the world, but you are still you'll still get a job. It may take longer, I will say, and that is something to expect. But just like we were just talking about the remote situation, use that opportunity to really identify with who you are. Sometimes the gap in work, it's stressful for other reasons, like, financial reasons. And, we all need to meet those basic needs. But sometimes there is something very out of alignment with your life, which may or may not be why you're not employed right now. If you are not a passive seeker who's, somebody who's working, just looking for something bigger or better or next. But take that time while you're looking to really get aligned with who you are. It's going to make all the difference with where you land next on your journey.
I agree with that. And I really like that. And the thing that I would like to say is I, again, worked in the job search, industry for a long time, for about 15 years. And I had the opportunity to work with hundreds and hundreds of facilitators and coaches. And again, I am going to say Kelly is on my list of top 10 ever best facilitators as far as how she was able to work with participants, how she was able to make this an art, how to make people connect. She has such a powerful way to do that. So I would encourage you, if you have a question or if you're just like, Kelly is a great person to reach out to. I do promise you that. And I want to thank you for being here today, Kelly. One last question that I would ask for you, because we are talking about productivity. Do you have a tip or a recommendation to make the job search process feel like you're a little bit more in control of the productivity of it, if you will?
Actually, I have 3, if you wouldn't mind, real quick.
Yes, go with it.
I mentioned a couple of things earlier. Prepared. So first of all, like I said, preparation is your competitive edge. Candidates who research and plan their questions, and that also helps you to look, at what the company is doing or what your connections at the company are doing. It really helps you to connect your story to the role and stand out every time. Another thing I would recommend is staying organized and consistent. So treating your job like a search, like a project. Use a tracker. Google Sheets is free. You don't have to pay for Microsoft. Use a checklist. And it just keeps you consistent. Where have I looked for? Who have I heard from? Because the last thing you want to do is reply to the wrong recruiter at the wrong job. That doesn't look great, because it makes you look like you're not organized. But just staying consistent and tracking those things, it really does prevent opportunities from slipping through the cracks. And lastly, use each step as a learning opportunity. Instead of treating no like a rejection, it is a learning experience. Every interview is a chance for you to build your networking skills. ask questions about the role that you weren't even aware of, and you can prepare to answer those better the next time. And so whether it leads to an offer or not, just allow every interview to give you insight into how you show up and what you value. And that reflection, let it be fuel for your next step.
You know, Kelly, that is such a powerful reminder. And I know for me personally also, when I'm in the job search, a no feels like the end of the world. And I understand that, right? We get that feeling, we've had it. But it's also an important reminder that maybe there was a reason for that, and that, you know, all of those things to look at. So that was such a great reminder.
Thanks.
My goodness, Kelly, I have enjoyed this time. I could talk to you for an hour more. I have more questions, but I want to thank you for the gems that you gave, especially, you know, some of the nuggets, just to remind us, you talked about be the gem that's going to stand out. Think about the job search from both perspectives, from the job seeker and the recruiter. The nuggets you have given us have definitely been super helpful, Kelly. I want to thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure. And I learned from the best, you guys. So don't let her get over on that one.
Nope. I learned from you. I remember learning from you in your work. It's a lot more than you learned from me, but I appreciate that. And I want to thank you. And Kelly, I would love to have you come back another time and have us talk more about it if you would do that.
It'd be my pleasure, Megan. Thank you.
All right. Well, everybody, I want to thank you for joining us today. Again, it is Intentional Productivity Tips. I am Megan. I am your very favorite strategic productivity partner. And as we had Kelly here today, her contact information, please feel free to email her. Feel free to connect with her on LinkedIn. You're going to get some great information. Next week, we will be back with another show. Next week, I am going to talk a little bit more about your organization and job search. So we are on a theme for the next couple of weeks. And we're going to take this information we learned from Kelly, and we're going to go with it. I want to thank you again. I want to thank you again for showing up for USA Global TV and Radio's YouTube show, Intentional Productivity Tips. And now a word from our sponsor.
Get ready to wear the brand that's changing the world of media. Introducing the official USA Global TV and Radio online store. From our TV show hosts to our incredible global guests, you asked, we delivered. Rep your appearance with pride. Whether you've been on air, hosted a show, or tuned in, we have something just for you. Visit us at usaglobaltvradiosshop.myspreadshop.com and start shopping today. Check back frequently. We're dropping fresh new designs all the time. Showcase your role in our global community. These designs celebrate your voice, your story, your presence. It's more than just merchandise. It's a movement of hope, inspiration, education, and elevated listening. Head to usaglobaltvradiosshop.myspreadshop.com. Your spotlight awaits. USA Global TV and Radio. Elevate your style. Elevate the world.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/usaglobaltv. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.